is I'm going to do 3 Jim songs on the piano, which I thought would be appropriate because Jim himself was a piano player. He says that he was never a singer, but he would. And this is the way that you would get a song to somebody would be down the phone. You know, somebody would sit at the other end of the phone and write down the words and the chords. That was how Jim would pass these songs out. Yeah. So I thought I'd do a couple of Jim songs on the piano. This one came in response to, you might know, and it's a far better known song, Adam McNaughton had the Where is the Glasgow That I Used to Know, which was so well known that Prince fucking Charles quoted it at the opening of the Garden Festival. Yes, he did. But it was a very rosy-hued look at Glasgow life. Probably either upper sort of working class or into sort of like the middle class sort of thing. And Jim said that's not the Glasgow that I used to know at all, even though it could actually be called Paisley when Jim was concerned, because he was born and bred and raised in Paisley. So he called this one Farewell to Glasgow, but it could just as well have been called Farewell to Paisley. Again, this brilliant thing where he takes a gorgeous melody and sets the hardest words against it. Where is the Glasgow I used to know? The tenement buildings that let in the snow, through the cracks in the plaster, the cold wind did blow, and the water we washed in was 50 below. We read by the gaslight, we had no TV, hot porridge for breakfast, cold porridge for tea. Some Wayne had rickets, and some had tea. That's what the Glasgow of old means to me. And the neighbours complain if we played way up hunch, cuddy hunch against somebody's wall. If we played kick the can, wait to watch for the law, for the police made sure we did sweet bugger all, and we had all together to keep warm in bed. We had no sheets nor blankets, just old coats instead, and a big balaclava to cover your head. God, but it's cold, was the only prayer said. Some say that tenement living was swell. They're the wally close tops, they had doors with a bell, 2 rooms and a kitchen and a bathroom as well, while the rest of us lived in a single-end hell. So wipe off that smile when you talk of the days when you lived in the garbos or in Cook Christmas ways. Remember the rats and the mice we once chased. Tenement living was a bloody disgrace. Thank you very much. Thank you. This is a contemporary song, contemporary to 1961. And if you had a wee time machine, we would go back to the time of the Lady Chatterley trial, which means absolutely nothing to me, but if you look at the sort of the historical context, it was almost the 60s started with Lady Chatterley and then the Beatles and all the rest of it. So Jim wrote this kind of wee song about Lady Chatterley, and he knew that he had sold it, the song. Mark McGinn recorded it and a few other people, but Jim sold it in a pub for cash to Paddy Clancy of the Clancy Brothers. How Paddy got to know it, whether Jim sang it to Paddy, I don't know, but Paddy bought it for £50 in cash, and Jim says he pulled out this what cash that the Clancy Brothers, and the Clancy Brothers, basically their publishing company, own this song. And their most famous album, the Clancys, was the Live at Carnegie Hall. It was in everybody's house. I mean, even my Orange family had members, had the Clancy Brothers at Carnegie Hall in their house. But it was recorded over 2 nights and they had far too much material, so stuff get dropped, and this is one of the ones that get dropped. So it only came out in the digital age, and Jim wasn't aware of it until I told him about it, which was, I loved that, because he wasn't getting any money coming in, he didn't own it, So it's called Lady Chat, and I'm going to kind of put it to some sort of like a wee New Orleans groove, because I think that's sort of the red light of New Orleans and Lady Chatterley might work quite well together. Chatterley, sick and tired of love was she. Hey, hey, poor wee Lady Chat. The wee hey bit is the chorus. And good Sir Clifford was her man. He got shot in the war and he couldn't stand. Hey, hey, sad wee Lady Chat. But Lady Chat was full of pluck. She went into the garden to try her luck. Hey, hey, happy Lady Chat. I think he might have read the book. Hey, hey, watch out, Lady Chat. She came to the door with a rat-a-tat-tat. Come in, he says, and we'll have a wee chat. Hey, you've had it, Lady Chat. And he took her into his bottom bed. You can read what they did, page 110. Hey, hey, happy Lady Chat. Clifford heard that name. He called his wife a 4-letter word. Hey, hey, bad wee lady chat. So to all you lords, this moral I'll tell: if you've got a garden, dig it yourself. Hey, hey, poor wee lady chat. Hey, hey, that was the end of that. That's it, Gavin. Thank you, thank you. Right, you know that thing where I was saying that I'm doing some songs that I've never sung before? This is another one of them. Jim wrote this at the turn of the year when his wife Alison passed away, and he wrote a few pieces of poetry with no intention of setting them to music, which was unusual because he's a songwriter. Alistair MacDonald, Jim's probably his oldest collaborator. They first worked together on the Ding Dong Dollar album in 1961, but they've been estranged, shall we say, for some time. Alistair got a hold of these poems, because he knew Alison and liked Alison and wanted to set them to music. So this is essentially written, words by Jim and music by Alistair, and I was really pleased to get to play actually in this room. We recorded it in here. Well, we had to do a few other bits and pieces, but we did do some recording right in here on a private CD, which, like I say, Jim and Alistair, Fraser Bruce and Ian Bruce and myself, and I was just absolutely gobsmacked to be part of that. This one touches quite close to home, but hopefully that'll get through it as well. It's just called For Alison. Have you ever watched a loved one sleep? Count each shallow breath. Life and love, both intertwined, not undone by death. The pain of love, departed love, is worse than love unknown. A fond kiss, I walk in awe. Two songs I hear as one. Beauty, beauty cannot hide. Those lips are full, not thin. Breaking eyes are sparkling still beneath that pale, pale skin. I cry myself to sleep each night. I cry, but sleep won't come. A fond kiss, I walk in awe. Two songs I hear as one. Finger cannot hold the ring. The hand is thin and weak, and yet the grip to me is strong. No need to see or speak. I took her hand, returned the squeeze, but part of me had died. I kissed her lips and cried, oh yes. I kissed her lips and cried. I kissed her lips and cried. Alison.
So this is a couple of political poems from Wanderlust Women, and I was an academic at one time and shared an office with a great friend of mine called Rania, and we used to sit to 2 in the morning sometimes just try to get our work done. She was from Syria. So this is a poem called Rania is Syria. And we're still very good friends now. Better put my bins on. Hair black as night memory, our desks close and distant, but only for a time. Stuttered introductions left to laughter. My home is Syria. It's beautiful there. Studying long late nights in our modernist malaise, Wolfe and Lawrence, intensity and challenges, we had deadlines to meet, conferences to prepare. The special mint tea was ever there, with a chat and questions. Do you love your home, Scotland? Syria comes alive when I think of Rania. Her descriptions draw me closer to the river, Euphrates, Khan Assad Pasha, the Umayyad Mosque, the oldest mercantile city in the world, Damascus. The hazelnuts and pears, the shawarmas and breads, the trees and flowers amidst long hours of bells and busyness. The market crowded and crammed with everything that grows in her land of plenty. And a Syrian tapestry, your gift to me, to the touch silk and woven through with metallic thread, perfected technique of a celebrated milk worker, Zok, the artisan, Aleppo weaver. But all this was before the new war, before the interference, before the country needed new suspect allies to depose Assad and his style of killing. Some, it seemed, were willing to worsen the civil upheaval, let violence and bloodshed bathe the streets as Obama looked on biding his time, but not long, till the might of America rained down bombs and death on every town and city. And of course the West celebrated the Arab Spring, now 10 years gone, delighted in the spoils of turmoil they could feed on after 500,000 dead, 55,000 children killed, and over 7 million fleeing their beloved Syria. And you had to leave, Rania. In Italy, you teach about modernism, that movement a transformative reaction to the waste of a European war. Modernism, progress, human evolution. You must weep. My desk is near and distant. I dream commune. Hair black as night memory. A smile like light as we studied till 2. One day, through the dust storms of another decade, I will travel to you, Rania, Syria. Thank you. In another part of my academic life, I was working for the British Council, and it was lots of us, a good few years, did a thing in Glasgow, Belfast, and London. Cultural studies courses were great. And one of the most memorable and fantastic times in my life was spending time with the Belfast women. I helped to be part of a conference called Gender and Colonialism, which was fabulous in Galway. But the Belfast women, West Belfast women, were something else. So this poem is called Women Wall Writers of West Belfast, Join the Poets. Paula Meehan, Yvonne Boland, poets talk and push for political change to an approach that ignores women's experience of this war-torn place that carries death or scarring to their homes and hearths daily. Local Belfast women react to the call to conference, turn up and urge a rewriting of all frames of reference, and especially a rewriting of the walls. The academics are impressed. Take a back seat and let the women of the town speak what they know first hand, first heart, of the painful letting go of sons and daughters as the street toll rises. We've had enough of seeing King Billy and the Pope. And it's true, they look down from community walls, a daily reminder of what side your foot falls into without hope as you dig yourself a trench to hate in. We've had enough of the sorrow, she said. They tell now how they're storming the streets with ladders and paints, redecorating the cobble edges, ensuring gable ends flash new images. They show their photos, doves flying skyward into night and lightness. Piece by piece on the Shankhill Road. And then paintings of babies crawling upwards, ascending the bricks of a hopefully changing Belfast. Okay, so I wanted to read this book, The Siren Awakes, as a memoir about growing up in Paisley as a singer. And this book came out this year with Red Squirrel Press. It's called The Cabinet, and it was to my mother, who was a mental case and a wee bit of a drinker. She was quite a girl. She was a mill worker, and absolutely, she hated me studying. She's got no a bad face, her wee lassie. What's she want to fucking stick her head in books for? She's got no bad voice. What's she fucking doing all the books for? That's for folk who can't get a man to look after them. Can you imagine how well that went down with me? But anyway, so, fortunately, we had time later on to sort that out. But she was always kind of want to give advice, and why wouldn't she? And some of it was fantastic. This was good. I'm really struck on a wee bit to see here. I'm going to move a bit that way. I stayed in Greenlaw Avenue, but moved around. I got married very, very young, had kids very young. And it was like Howard Street, and then progressed till we got to Greenlaw Avenue, which was a wee bit kind of more posh. I was playing in punk, rock, every kind of bands, so it wasn't that easy for me to get myself fitted in with the local situation. So this is called Greenlaw Advice and the Bell. It was all about timing, being accepted into the avenue frame of reference, about what makes a good wife and mother. Listen, hen, you'll need to play the game and help the wains to fit in. Playing in a band and earning good money could be with my kids by day, honey sparkled at night, done up like a Christmas tree in a cabaret band, on the road in a van and down the cities and towns of Scotland. I could be with my kids by day. They didn't need a nursery. So it's all about timing, kids playing, dressing up fun. You don't get these days back, there isn't a rerun. I don't want to go back out and teach. It's just taking time for these folks to see that this is a different way to live. Hey, you'll need to learn to play the game and give the fucking wains a chance to fit in. I stood my ground and months went past, till at last the kids were invited to their friends' homes. Women nodded in the street. The ice had melted, despite the black transit van at my door every night. There seemed to be a wives' consensus that she might be all right. A free Saturday from the band, the drummer was ill, and the street mums were having a night, and right up till 6, I didn't know if I'd be there with the in crowd to go to a crystal party. Lots of drinks were downed, more than the band in the van. Lots of crystal glasses were found to be just gorgeous. Thousands were purchased. Tupperware nights trashed, a thing of the past. Cheap rubbish. Not really a drinker. I was pretty astonished at the amount of booze that was tanned. That must be great playing in a band. We all thought you were right Lulu, probably a fucking man grabber. I went to the crystal table, bought Mum a purple glass bell. When I visited, she asked, "What the hell's that for?" I tried to explain my thinking about ceremony, bells ringing, indicating a change of direction, how I had taken her advice and played ball with all the women at the Avenue night. Good. That's it done, hen. Get your back on track. Get your band back on track. Live your own way. But remember what I'm telling you. I watch your back. Tiny last bit from the book to finish. I was just thinking when Gavin was singing that song, I did live in that single end in Stock Street, and I was only one amongst my friends who had an outside toilet with a big massive key and all that. So I realised we must have been a wee bit poorish, because my peer group didn't have that kind of situation. So my grandfather stayed in the back room, and there was a wee scullery, outside toilet, and there was my mum, my dad, 3 of us, a budgie, a tortoise and a dog. It was fucking unbelievable. And it seemed to be okay, but so this is, again, my mum's advice. Personal space was, this is when I'm a wee lassie, personal space was hard to find if you lived in a room and kitchen. And my mum struggled with that, and I, predictably enough, was never away from the door. I wanted to be in, with my books, my singing, my specs, in my home. But getting out to play was apparently uniformly good for all children. Getting out the road of the wringer, the spin dryer, the suit making, it seemed to be essential. But the bonus was that my voice did sound louder and clearer in the old wash house, where there was acoustics in a world of water swirling and dancing. Through the harbour of my heart I will send my love to guide you. Long months were spent around Stock Street, and the 10 went back close. But it was not easy to be at peace, and Phyllis would always hound me out of the wash house, where I would be singing, drag me into the sheep flying back green. Her surname has gone, but I do recall that she was only moderately violent. But her dominance amongst the small group of 7-year-olds was accepted. If we were walking our dolly's prams through the grass, only she could speak like a mummy and talk to her baby and say which washing pole was to be our next destination. Why are you always singing in that wash house? I don't know. Well, I want you to be out here with us. Is that okay? Okay. And that was it. Authority in action, cooperation assumed. Rarely did she have to resort to physical violence, though that did happen as well occasionally, if you pulled the arm of your dolly from her burgeoning family pram. And then I would look up and see my mum at the window tossing her whites higher and more briskly into an open space. It was a few weeks before my arm was pulled into the kitchen. Have I just watched you let Phyllis hit you? Have I just let you watch her hit you for the 3rd time this week? Are you going to let folk hit you? But it wasn't really slower. Are you going to let folk hit you? Are you? My arm was ragdolling to and fro as this lesson was delivered. But the water in the basin above was so frothy and lovely white. It almost rolled over slowly and surely. What are you looking at? Do you hear me talking to you? And then there was a coin, a 6pence, suspended above me and in front of the white foaming loveliness. Look at this. Do you see it? Do you see this? Well, this is yours. If you smash her one, a good one right in the face. My mum must have felt my resistance shudder upwards. Hey, none of that mealy-mouthed shite. You need to learn to protect yourself. It's a bad world out there and you need to learn to stand up for yourself. These were very serious words. I believe that our clenching fingers met in the middle. My forearm was now flattened. This was a stern outburst, unquestionable, and the next sentence was equally clear. So this week, if she pulls you out that wash house when you're doing your singing, takes your doll or hits you, and you do nothing, I'm going to fucking hit you. And it'll be a Sonian. Unslept, I tried everything to remain indoors, but it was a Saturday, which meant that the opportunity for healthy, robust outdoor play was maximised. As often happened, I did manage to get into the wash house during one of the old ladies' turns. Tuning into my inner Radio Luxembourg, I began, walking back to happiness, whoompa, yeah. I said goodbye to loneliness, whoompa, yeah. Wee Ethel from upstairs loved this one and started humming along with me, occasionally bumping her bum out beyond the ringer to give me a wee laugh. Many songs were performed that morning before I helped her catch the sheets that were folding out of the contraption in long, smooth cascades of material. I loved them. That's me away hen. The wash house sounded different without the swishing background music and audience. Oh, no again. Why are you not here playing with us? I'm just singing, Phyllis. Do you want to sing? And I was hauled out onto the green, and I caught sight of my mum at the window, holding a sixpence high in the air and punching at the inside of her own hand. Frantic, I let rip and began a succession of blows, aiming first at the window, then at the world and poor Phyllis. It was growing dark when her mother appeared later with the bleeding child. They were both heartily threatened there on the doorstep. Voices were raised and echoing in my head as I retreated behind my bed curtain recess. My head and my heart pounded in that gloom, the sixpence I had thrown into an oily drain. Thank you very much.
The reader for you should have been Charlie Gracie, but Charlie had a family crisis tonight, so therefore I'm going to read in his stead. Now, when we were reading here on Thursday night, we were having a wee chat at the table, and you know, folk singers, traditional singers, they all sing each other's songs, but poets never read anybody else's poems. Which I think's a bit of a shame, because we should celebrate each other the way folk musicians, traditional singers celebrate each other. And when Charlie emailed me today to say he couldn't make it tonight, he said, oh, after your conversation, I was reading yesterday and I decided after a wee conversation to read one of Elizabeth Runner's poems at the, which I thought was brilliant. But I'm going to, because he's not here, I'm going to read a couple of Charlie's poems, just to let you know what you're missing tonight, because he's a fabulous poem. This is from his book, Tales from the Dartry Mountains. It's a fabulous piece of work, actually. So I'm going to read the first one, and it's red. And it's called The Purpose of Poetry. To lead you up the Dartry Mountains, and there to hear a lark in the spiral air. To know the beauty of the bog, the soft squish of moss. To lighten your eyes, to liven your ears, to press home a point about love, to hold you still, to give a voice to the darkening wind, a voice to the south of danger, to the north of presence, to east and west of eternity, as it whispers, so you cannot hear. A wonderful poem to open about the poetry, actually. This one, a lot of poems are historical poems about his family. This one's about his mammy. It's called Mammy on a Chopper. I've got shadows on the page. Sorry. My bike's a purple chopper, but Mammy takes it every day. Rides up to Barlanrock, up to her work at Pendeen, in her sheepskin coat and a headscarf. It's a pure red neck as she wobbles in the first 2 turns of the wheels, then shouts, "Yeah!" when she gets going right and fires off. She'd have run about the fields of Magermore, barefoot up the steep sides of Gotnagan, skating her toes on rocks. The boys washed at the outside tap, while she, with curtains closed for modesty, washed at the kitchen sink. So now it seems obvious to use what is at hand, to go to work on a chopper, to save a bit for a better cut of meat. It's called Man on a Bike. It was written in Skurrig about nearly 20 years ago when we were staying up there. It's a brilliant place. Skurrig or Skurrig, or whatever you pronounce it. It's a little peninsula, a big peninsula, across from Liverpool, across Loch Broom, and it's a brilliant place. There's a great community on it. It's all off the grids and no roads. It's a boat or your feet that get you in and out. This is called Manny on a Bike. Twice met on the same road. One's gone, one's backland's coming. The man on the bike stops for 2 hours seeking Hailson o' the day. He's called Nigel. He grows vegetables. His tatties and broccoli went well with my nut roast. He keeps coos, and it turns out makes blads for Winspiel's tea. After our wee bladder, Nigel bade us farewell. My turn for the ferry today, he said, and headed on toward the jetty. And so it is in Skurrig. Nobody does just one thing. And it's all right, you don't need to try every single thing. I'm going to read this one. It's from a book of poetry I published a long time ago. Niggas up there published. Everybody else get books up here except for me. I've got a paper, So,
Next month, Joe.
Yeah. This is called Wawoka's Song. It's from a wee collection called Bracasic Moon. Now, Wawoka's Song, these are the words of an actual Amerindian shaman called Wawoka. You can find them in the book I Left My Heart at Wounded Knee. And this is his actual words. I took them from a letter that he wrote to Washington in protest of basically trying to supplant Indian culture. And it's called Wawoka's Song. Our young men shall never work, for those who work cannot dream, and wisdom comes to us in dreams. You ask me to plough the ground. Shall I take a knife and tear out my mother's heart? Then when I die, she will not take me to her bosom to rest. You ask me to dig for stones. Shall I rake under her skin for her bones? Then when I die, I cannot enter her body to be born again. You ask me to cut grass, to make hay and be rich like the white man. How dare I cut my mother's hair? We know the dead will come to life, that their spirits will again come to their bodies. It is so, and we wait in the place of our fathers, ready to meet them here in the bosom of our mother. This is another one from the Skurrig, sort of a wee group of poems. It's called Lady on a Rock. I was lying on a rock down at the Fiorin. She says, sunbathing. There, scud it. You done that right by me. We'll look at, I thought. If I had seen her down there, I must have missed my step or something. Broke a leg or something. And I'll read this one. It's called, it's a wee romantic one. I said I'll read that and then, So. It's called, no, really. It's called This Kiss. The snow moon is your mouth as our lips fade to stars. The distance between us is both vast and slight, and you, my universe. And this gentle breeze, your breath warms my face in the cold dark of night, a scent that is of honeysuckle. Ah, there is no Eden but you, my heaven. And your tongue is mimosa, I taste it, savour it, this kiss. I am wrapped in a cosmos of wonder, and you, my ground, my earth. A Across this space we reach out, embrace a quantum touch emerging of atoms, of elemental particles. No more distances, no more boundaries, but still I am me and you are you. Yet we are become one, and everything is one, and everything is love, and you and I, we are everything. I'll finish with this. I've been trying to write in Scots more, and I've been enjoying discovering words that I'd forgotten and finding them again. There's one or two that might appear in here that I've stuck in maybe and I'm not quite right, but I hope they are. This is called a rid Sulin at Hame Farm in Culzean. I used to live at Culzean, and in the evening when all the tourists went away and all the dog had the most beautiful back garden in the whole of Scotland, and I would just sit there with my cup of tea, missing my wee darling, which is where that poem came from. I was sitting there missing it. It was about 10 minutes before I phoned her, and I wrote that and read it out to her. Anyway, this is called a rid Sulin, and I'll go through it as quick as possible. I sat down my back stool on the nook of my clubhouse, sit and sipple my final cup of tea of the day and watch the hindmost of the duck folk make their way towards hame. The loud and musical lill to a Mary or Tams and reed rabs and spinks coorie down. Yoon maist and an antering calf wi a goo, rosy in the gloaming, headed back to roost on Arran. A rid Sulin, Hewley Seasel into Campbelltown Loch. Glows a boon clouds, a coolie breeze cheeps through the crowded branches of trees. The quaintness is soothing. The saft fizzy o' tide on the hiddly shore above the heugh is easy on the lugs. My tea becomes cold, but I'll drink it a'. Through the gloaming, a flaff o' siller becomes a small ermine moth, caught in the blush o' licht through my window, cooks into the dark of the name. In the frith I hint me a rary flists, something frightening is near abouts, as woodies gie a forsy flack o' wings. I remember a small catty, some day's sign, dondering the loney. Sudden and sealant twa buckies flink ayont my head, their scaly aeronautics, say low to the grunt conflummix me. My aim tried to follow them, but lost them again the dark o' the frith. The final drops of my tea are settled, the air now called, I carry my back stool ben the house. 100 years of law, the who of the hullets. In the deep dark of the night, when I be times walking, I hearken to her one note song, a sound that softly soothes, often's good, often's in its place, and I curry down, drift along. Thank you very much.
She's already won the Folk Singer of the Year, and as we heard, she's just been awarded the Scots Speaker of the Year. I know that she has got a huge enthusiasm for the song tradition because we've already worked together, and she knew fine who Maurice Blythman was, if I can say such a thing at such a young age. I think it's safe and fair to say that when most of us are dust, whatever the Scottish equivalent of a dame is, then Dame Iona Fyfe will tell the young Wains about being at nights like this tonight, and that's what it's all about. Folks, put your hands together and welcome up Iona Fyfe.
Right, so, oh my goodness, overestimating the hype. Okay, so, I've, and now you've underestimated I'm actually going to start off with a song that's in English. And I didn't realise that we could do, stuff that or in repertoire. And I have not, I did an entire 4-year course at the Conservatoire on Scots song, and not once was Jim McLean's name mentioned.
Shame.
And I just thought that was a shame. Shameful. We got all your bloody Burns. Rod Paterson couldn't give me enough Burns. and Fiona Hunter gave me the Malinky back catalogue. But basically, we didn't really get Jim McLean stuff, or we got maybe some Marian Angus or, you know, Violet Jacob or other poets and songwriters, but no Jim McLean. But when we did the Morris Blythman gig, I was like, hold on, I recognise this, I've heard it somewhere. And actually, it's not being taught in the conservatoires, but it's some of his songs have already entered into the tradition, and the fact that I used to hear Bill Gray, a Bothy ballad singer, sing the Silver Darlings. I heard folk like Robert Lovey singing the Silver Darlings as well, up in Aberdeen. And I just thought that I'd love someday for my work to go into tradition. And Jim's songs are so seemingly written in line with tradition that you can't tell the difference between what he's put to melody and what he's wrote, because it's so in line with tradition, and that's a really good identifier of someone that can write in line with tradition, if you don't mind my 23-year-old arse saying.
Go for it.
I decided, I've been in Glasgow for like 6 years, almost 7, and in May is when it happened. In May, all of the cabinet ministers in the parliament were being sworn in. It was the first day of the new parliament. I think that's the 13th of May. So Abdi in Holyrood was really busy. This is when the UK government, in particular Priti Patel, decided to punt up a big van, loads of deportation vans into Scotland. I think it was quite strategic on the day that all the cabinet ministers were busy. That's when they put several to Edinburgh, several to Glasgow. But one particular one that went to Glasgow got stopped. And that's because a young lad named Declan Blench got up in the morning, saw a deportation van, get down, lay in front of the van, and then started tweeting. And by afternoon, there was like hundreds of folk with banners and flags and all that stuff. And basically protesting, saying, don't take these men away, they're part of our community. And I couldn't myself get down there, I was stuck with work, but I just thought it was an amazing sense of community that Glasgow has that I personally don't see in Aberdeenshire. Aberdeenshire being quite the Tory place. So yeah, it makes me feel like Glasgow's my home, or my adopted home. And I'm no much of a songwriter. I've got the lyrics here because despite writing it myself, I still can't mind it. I decided to pick I decided to write to Woody Guthrie's Deportee. Woody Guthrie and Martin Hoffman's Deportee, or Plane Crash at Los Gatos / Gatus. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Don't think anyone is. But yeah, there's a great chorus, if I do say so myself, that you can join in with, that'll be familiar. The city is quiet and morning is breaking. The people are making their daily commute. But down in the south side they've spied a big white van. The government say they're to end a dispute over 2 men who settled and thrived in this nation, who made it their home and who worked all their lives, torn from their homes on the holiest day, and judged through the press by their bigoted eyes. The suits down in Whitehall make justifications for tearing a family apart in the street, and you won't have a name when you ride the big airplane. All they will call you will be deportees. But the people of Glasgow, they took to the streets, defending their neighbours raided at dawn. For 8 hours they sat there chanting and singing, your home is in Glasgow, you're where you belong. Why should we continue to stay in this union, a union that does not treat us with respect? We should carve our own path and set our own rules, and value the people we ought to protect. The suits down in Whitehall make justifications for tearing a family apart in the street, and you won't have a name when you ride the big airplane. All they will call you will be deportees. So think of that woman who makes the decisions, who wears her posh suit and who smirks at the press. She thinks taking back control means deporting our people instead of the issues she ought to address. No one is illegal, no matter where you come from. We're still toiling through Westminster's lies. The system is broken, but we see a way out. It's time now for Scotland to stand up and rise. The suits down in Whitehall make justifications for tearing a family apart in the street. And you won't have a name when you ride the big airplane. All they will call you will be, is this the best way we can grow our own nation? How can we move forward if we can't agree? And they shouldn't be sent to ride the big airplane, then all they will call them will be deportees. Whoa. So I guess that's a way that someone can write a song but no actually write the whole song, which I guess Jim did, not in a bad way, but in the fact that he wrote from tradition in tradition, and that sometimes definitely means writing to traditional melodies. And yeah, I think some of the songs are just beautiful and they feel familiar to people. But this one, in fact, you know what? I'll do the. I've got my lyrics, because you know what? At 23, I'm not actually joking, but it's impossible to learn a song nowadays. When Gavin mailed me a few weeks ago, he said, "Here's some songs." I was like, "Great! I've got 3-4 weeks. Amazing. I'm sure I'll get into it." No, it's no gonna. So please do forgive me. When I was younger, I used to do like Doric poetry, and it was people like Sheena Blackhall and Ian Middleton and kind of more Doric-y northeast poets, and not very radical at all. You know, I feel like the northeast throughout everything has been quite content with its fishing and farming, so I feel like they kind of just stayed out of stuff. And a lot of the Doric poems that I did were all kind of situational, and they were fictitious, and they weren't really about anything. But I did do all these Doric poems at festivals that the TMSA run, at Keith or Aberdeen or Kinnameer or whatever, and there's loads of different singers. Again, nae for radical stuff at all. Bothy ballads and kind of big T traditional ballads, you know, ancient ones. But I did hear this being sung by Bill Gray, who's mostly a Bothy ballad singer, and it's a really gorgeous melody. So I hope I really don't make messes of all of these. Cool. Ron Paterson told me at uni that if you're ever nae sure of the key, do the lowest and the highest bit, and then you should nae make an air so it. Oh, herons are harvest of fishermen glean, where flashes the sailor through deep ocean's green. And when herring harvests reach all Aberdeen, they're ken as the silver darlings on Aberdeen quay, rocked by the fishermen hame fae the sea, to the city that stands twixt a dawn and a day, the hame of the silver darlings. The boats leave the harbour, their weeks breeding wide, and empty the row wi' the swell o' the tide. Oh, soon may their hatches be thrown open wide, for a catch o' the silver darlings. Silver darlings on Aberdeen quay, rocked by a fisherman hame fae the sea, to the city that stands twixt a dawn and a day, the hame of the silver darlings. There's ice on a wrecking and death doon a below, with a gale screaming wild and a glass hanging low. The wives and the sweethearts are women who know the price o' the silver darlings. Silver darlings on Aberdeen Quay, brought by fishermen hame fae the sea, to the city that stands twixt the dawn and the day, the hame of the silver darlings. Silver darlings on Aberdeen Quay, rocked by fishermen hame fae the sea, to the city that stands twixt the dawn and the day, the hame of the silver darlings. So I'm going to do I'm going to do a version of this. I always get the fear about singing new songs, and over the last 18 months I haven't really learnt many songs. Loads of singers are going, oh, I've wrote loads, I've learnt loads, and I haven't. I've stayed in my bed, I've been sad, basically, mourning the loss of my former life, but now we're getting back to it. I'm just like, I'm off it, basically. So this is a version of the Internationale, and I've kind of rewritten it again, trying to find the lyrics to it, because I swear to God, my brain is just mush. It's horrendous. And no matter how much I sing through stuff, I just can't get it done. So yeah, I learnt this from a singer called Simon Gall, who plays the piano in a band called Clipe, which is the Doric word to tell on somebody, which I like. And the band is wee Johnny Hardy, who's the fiddler in Old Blind Dogs. And I kind of grew up thinking that Old Blind Dogs were the coolest thing in the world, because they were like tackling Northeast ballads and like touring them. And I didn't quite realise that like there was loads of bands doing it at that time, and that they were just one of them. But yeah, I didn't realise that there was much more to it than just Old Blind Dogs. But yeah, so the melody is written by Simon Gall, but the lyrics is a bit mishmash of everything, and it's a wee bit jazzy. And sometimes I do play piano, or I get somebody else to play it for me, but actually I think it's quite nice to do some unaccompanied stuff, because I grew up singing unaccompanied at the TMSA ballad competitions, and that was the only way that you would do it. You wouldn't dare put a melody to it. And that's fine, we're going to change that anyway, but I work as a director of the TMSA, and we're always trying to dig them through the 60s onwards. But I actually like singing unaccompanied, so yeah. Arise, ye workers, from your slumbers. Arise, ye prisoners of want. For reason in revolt now thunders, and at last ends the age of cant. Away with all your superstitions. Arise, servile masses, arise. We'll break henceforth the old tradition, and spurn the dust to win the prize. So comrades, come rally, and the last fight let us face. The Internationale unites the human race. The Internationale unites the human race. No more deluded by reaction, on tyrants only we will make war. The soldiers too will take strike action, they'll break ranks and fight no more. The earth will rise nations. We have been not, we shall be one. Let no man build these walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. So comrades, come rally, and the last fight let us face. The internationally unites the human race. The internationally unites the human race. No saviour from on high delivers, no faith we have in prince or peer. Our own right hand the chains man shiver, chains of hatred, greed and fear. And ere the thieves will hide their booty, and to all give a happier lot, let each at the forge man do their duty, and strike while the iron is hot. So comrades, come rally, and the last fight let us face. The internationally unites the human race. The internationally unites the human race. Whoa. Lovely. So the next one I'm going to do is a Jim song, and I genuinely thought it was traditional, like I really did. I wasn't. It's all good. I seriously thought it was traditional, because it just felt like it was so in line with all the folk songs that I learnt, at folk clubs or I was about to say at uni, but I really didn't learn much at uni. But that I didn't, I feel like it's a weird thing to go to a conservatoire and be sat down and be told, here's a folk song, learn it. I feel like you learn it at folk clubs or ballad competitions or multi-ballad competitions or at folk festivals or just at a sing-around or at a wee ceilidh like this. I feel like this is a ceilidh, to be honest. So to be going to uni and sat down and being told to sing a folk song and tell it sing it in a specific way, it really did my head in. And I just about got kicked out about 8 times, but it's fine. I graduated in 2019 just, with a first actually somehow. Because I was never there, and I was always Skyping in and being half cut. But yeah, this song felt so in line with tradition that I didn't realise it was a Jim song. So that's a testament to his writing in itself, I think. So. Call us a wind and wet as we make our beds, down on the sand, scavenging gulls and clappy-doos, down on a shore so Sutherland, high on a hill, Sir Sheelands are sheltering factors, that robber band, shepherds and sheep are asleep, while we die on the shores of Sutherland, lying beside the sea, awaiting the very first boat to land, begging for grab and heading along by the shores of Sutherland. Once our corn grew high and tall, as straight as a Highland man, and now we man harvest the seaweed that lies on the shores of Sutherland. Blood for our coos and meal, and nettle broth made we barley bran, Banned for the beds, o' mussels by ducks and their masters, o' Sutherland. Big are the shellfish, their garden for ship fishers who come from some other land. Cockles are baiting their hooks while we starve on the shores, o' Sutherland. Butter and brose and meal, salmon and deer and ptarmigan, honey and milk and cheese was the food o' the children o' Sutherland. Now we are burned from our clachans and hunted away our motherland, starved at the edge o' the sea by the Duke and the Duchess o' Sutherland. So I apologise if I've slipped tiny dorky Scots words in there, but actually a lot of thank you so much to Gavin who got Jim to send me original lyrics, because when a song enters into tradition, people change them, and that's what is tradition really, but they've changed them quite a lot that it's really hard to get the correct lyrics. I was finding loads of different versions of it. I was thinking, oh God, what's the right Ian? So it's better just to get into the horse's moo and ask what's the right one. But when Jim sent over the pages, I did notice that he had distinctly written them just in English with no specific dialect attached, and that's really interesting because it means that they were accessible. It means that when Alistair MacDonald did punt them out, they were accessible, and there was that sort of RP, not RP English, but that sort of Scottish accent that was acceptable on the radio waves and the airwaves and on TV. That sort of Jimmy McGregor, Robin Hall, Alistair MacDonald type vibes. There's no distinctive dialect attached to it, but you know it's Scottish. But for me, that's no good enough, I don't think. And luckily, TV and broadcasting have changed a wee bit on what they accept dialect-wise, because I feel like loads of different dialects are not really represented when you turn on a radio. And the last Doric speaker to hear BBC Radio Scotland consistent show was Robbie Shepherd, and since he retired, we didn't really get that. We've just got, we've got 2 shows on Radio Scotland that present folk music, and they're both presented by men with Highland accents. The East Coast and we've got Stuart Cosgrove representing the Central Belt, but we don't really have many folk that present with distinct dialects, and I think that that's really shite. So part of what I do is I lobby for a Scots Language Act, so an act that would put the Scots language on equal footing with Gaelic, so that there'd be more funding for projects which would have a Scots language element to it. There'd be more pressure for publicly funded media and broadcasting to have presenters that would speak in Scots. That doesn't mean that we need another radio. We don't need Radio Nan Scot. We don't need that. We just need some presenters that can put in a few words and code switch between Scots and English, because they're mutually intelligible languages. It's all like that, it's fine. But and it would also change education, because right now I still see in schools that kids have got Doric and Scots and all the different dialects of Scots for January, when Burns Week is, and then they get put back into the closet for the rest of the year like a dirty wee secret. So we could change that as well with a Scots Language Act, but it's really difficult because there's been so much legislation that the Parliament didn't get through last year because of COVID. But if you would like to help Our Voice, and it's called Our Voice, like Our Voice, and we've got a website, or a websteed, apparently that's the new word for Scots. But you can, a websteed.
A wab?
A websteed.
Steed?
Yeah.
Wabsteed?
That's what they've invented, I'm joking. No, it's a real thing apparently. Just a few weeks ago, the Scots language was made available on Firefox. So you know how if you use Chrome or if you use Safari, you can browse the web. Well now, via Firefox, the browser, you can download and add in a Scots language plugin. So when you're stravaiging the web, you can Mac muckle or Mac totty different. You can maximise, minimise, and when there's a bit that says skip file or skip this, it's lipe hour. And I just like, but I mean, I know we laugh, but the thing is the word lipe and hour is a pretty normal word. And for them to create this lexical world around computing, because Gaelic doesn't even have a word for computer, like they just go blah, 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 computer, blah, blah, blah. And we've got this whole entire browser in Scots, so it's really cool. But if you're not very good with computing, then I would advise against it because it makes it much harder to understand the internet. I think it's cool. So the funny thing is whenever I've written songs, not protest songs, but whenever I've written something with a meaning, I seem to write it in English, and I don't know why. So if I'm singing songs, they're probably Scots songs, but if I'm actually writing something, it comes out in English, unless I go, right, today I'm going to write a modern Scots song. But this is another song that I wrote, and I wrote it back in 2015 when I was 17ish. And when I was growing up, it was the conflict of the day was not Afghanistan, it was over in Syria, and it was trying to get my head around what was going on really, what's it all to do with? I mean, it's idle, isn't it? But what's actually happening? I couldn't understand who was against who, and fa we funded, and fa were pals we, but fa were nae pals we because they're pals with other folk, and they're bombing this folk, and it just got too much. And as a 17-year-old, I just couldn't understand what was going on. Why was there this conflict in Syria happening? So I wrote a wee song to the tune o Blue Bleezin' Blind Drunk, which, if you know that song, it's a pretty rough song to begin with. So yeah, it's called The Banks of the Tigris, and it's on the album, which is here.
Yay!
I have four or five copies with me if anybody wants one. And there's a full band on it, it's not just me. I would try and not sell that. But yeah, it's the first ever time, and I've only started singing this live recently in the last year or so because I felt like it was too much, and I'm like, well, it's not too much. So it's called The Banks of the Tigris. By the river the children are playing, and the sun and its heat growing strong, but around them the bullets are reaching, and we don't speak of where they come from. On the banks of the Tigris, we don't speak of where they come from. In the West Bank town of Ciara, it's a river, it now runs with red. Our headlines are written in anger, and the children they walk among dead. On the banks of the Tigris, the children they walk among dead. Mosul she now lies in ruins, and she won't speak of what they have seen. Messed that up. Mosul she now lies in ruins, and her people have all gone and fled. The young men are fighting their battles, and we judge only what we have read. On the banks of the Tigris, we judge only what we have read. Their fathers, their brothers, their husbands, their sons and their lovers they mourn, their faces and names uncertain, and we don't know of where they belong. On the banks of the Tigris, they don't know of where they belong. The survivors, they still have their tongues tied, and they won't talk of what they have seen. Our enemy lines always changing, in this battleground no hands are clean. On the banks of the Tigris, on this battleground no hands are clean. the powers declared liberation. But what are the people freed from? Not the fighting, the bullets, the bloodshed of a battle that's hardly begun. On the banks of the Tigers, the battle has hardly begun. By the river the children are playing, war silently floats by their eyes. Oh, what will become of our children as destruction it lurks in the skies? On the banks of the Tigers, destruction it lurks in their skies. So I'm going to do one more, and then Gavin will join me for the finishing song. I don't know what you're going to play. Are you going to play the guitar? Are you going to play the piano? Are you going to sing? Or are you going to... Guitar would be nice.
You do your song, and then I'll do a wee Glasgow anthem, and then we'll come back to you to finish it.
Amazing.
How about that?
Good. That sounds like a good plan. Good plan. So this is a gorgeous song that Jim wrote to the Mist Covered Mountains tune, I think. Aye, it is. Just gorgeous. And a total lullaby, and because it just feels like a lullaby that's been around for hundreds of years. And that's what I thought when I initially heard it. But yeah, just hopefully we can do loads more projects to celebrate Jim's work, because I just think it's crazy that some of these Scots songs, or songs that work in Scots as well as English, aren't being taught on a Scots song course, or they're not being taught at a folk music uni. But there's plenty to be said for the conservatoire, or the abattoir, as they wouldn't want me saying that, so do not put this online. I will seek an injunction and you will cease and desist. No, I'm joking. But that's sometimes how it felt. I felt like I was banging my head against a brick wall. But yeah, so thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Asked used to be playing with other musicians, that when I get to sing unaccompanied, especially in front of a room full of talented buggers, I feel very nervous at that, and it's actually nice to get a wee dose of nervousness, because for ages I was just feeling nothing, like absolutely bugger all. But the reason that I've been at the back with a mask on is that I'm going to Denmark on Friday for my first tour in over 2 years. So come hell or high water, if I get COVID on Wednesday, I'm going to cry. I'll let you all know, of course. You don't have to buy in. But I'm one of the boring people that I want to go out drinking with my pals, because I'm like, no, I'm not wanting to get the vid. So yeah, this has been nice, because I presume that none of you have been in a nightclub in the last 10 days.
I just lie all the time.
It's just like the Polo Lounge. So join in with the chorus on this, because the verses are actually a bit high. Okay. Hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come a-creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. So smile in your sleep, bonny bairnie. Into valleys we're ringing wee tunes, oh, our children singing, but new sheep bleat in the evening, and sheeling stand empty and broken. Hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come a-creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. Say smile in your sleep, bonny bairnie. fall and seem to be shaped are the ocean. Hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come a-creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. Say smile in your sleep, bonny bairnie. No use a pleading or praying, new gone, gone. All hope of staying, say hush, hush, be anchors away. Da cry in your sleep, bonny bairnie. Hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come a-creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. Say smile in your sleep, bonny bairnie. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Having that Iona Fyfe. Wow. The future game, Iona Fyfe. Jim wrote a great Glasgow anthem back in the early 60s. He wrote it for the Joe Gordon Folk Four, if your memory stretches back that far. Although Joe never recorded it. The chorus, I'll teach you all the chorus. Oh the Barras, they're no in Rome nor Paris. You have to go to Glasgow's Gala Gate. They sell tickets to the moon, a return for half a croon. And £5 which we're going back to incidentally. Guarantees a first class seat. This is the Barras. Well, there's a spot in Glasgow City that's well kent. The hill water that's more famous than the Mona Lisa's face. It is visited by royalty and rascals by the score. Everybody knows that Barras is the place. Day again St. Peter lost the keys to young Big Pearly Gates, and he thought that he'd get flung at all his job. Well then a flying Glasgow angel said, well Peter, tonight great you can find one at the Barras for a bob. Oh the Barras, oh the Barras, oh the Barras, they are no in Rome not Paris, and you have to go to Glasgow's Gala Gate. They sell tickets to the moon on a town for half a croon. I and £5 guarantees a first class seat. Now you can how Samson lost his hair, Delilah cut his hair, he was left as weak and baldy as a wing. Well, so he travelled down to Glasgow to the Barras for a cure, and he soon was strong and hairy once again. And when the Romans came to Scotland many donkeys years ago, and he got no further than the Gala Gate, because the flying Glasgow angels sent them souvenirs for swords, and the flying Glasgow Achilles had them made. Oh the Barras, they are no in Rome but Paris. You have to go to Glasgow's Gala Gate. Tickets to the moon. We've got tickets to the moon. On a top for half a crown, I and £5 guarantees a first class seat. Now when our Prince Charlie had to flee away to Scotia shore and seek refuge far across the friendly main, how the tears came streaming for his een as these words he did speak. Oh, I'd love to see the Barras once again. And so before I close my story, I'm gonna give you some advice. If you're after something cheap or second hand, take a trip up to the Barras, for there's nothing to compare with the stuff they sell in Glasgow's Barrowland. Oh Ar y tal ffordd a grynau y Fyfe op guarantees a first class seat. I think we go for the musical end. And Fyfe op guarantees a first class seat. Now, so hopefully you're going to know the last song. I asked Iona if she would sing this and how incredibly important, again, we're saying that all of these things link up. Scots language wasn't a thing when I was wee, probably the same as you. To be aspirational working class, you went to elocution. You remember that? It was exact opposite of speaking of Scots. Right? And within a relatively short period of time, things have changed that we're talking about a Scots Language Act. Absolutely amazing. And for me, I remember when Billy Kay came along talking about Scots, and I'm going, no, you know, that's playground topic. It was when Dick Gaughan used to explain Hamish Henderson's The Freedom Camogie. That is when I realised, yeah, this is something here. And it ties in as well because Jim McLean remembers when the Freedom Camogie only had 2 verses. And it only had 2 verses for a couple of years. And Hamish wrote the last one, the now iconic So Come All You at Hame the Freedom, Never Heed What the Hoodies Croak for Doom. He wrote that in 1961 for the Polaris Marchers, and he brought it into Morris and Marion Blythman's house up in the Balgrey Hill on a sheet of paper, and on the bottom of the sheet of paper was written a dedication, pardon me, to the Polaris Marchers, April 1961. So Hamish wrote the lad. Jim was there when the very last verse was first sung, and he was there the first time it was recorded. So, the Queen of Scots, Iona Fyfe, the Freedom Camogie. You know what key you're in?
Yeah, well, cool. I usually do it in like B flat.
That's okay, I've got a capo.
So if you did it, hold on, if you did it in A, you could capo it in B flat. Is that how it works?
I can do it in B flat, that's B flat.
Amazing. Cool. Rock the wind in the clear day starring, Lars a clear Tilster Gaudi are the name, but there's mere nor a rock wind blowing through the great glen of the world today. It's a fact into it gathered rottens, all the rogues that can gallus fresh and gay. Tap the road and seek other loadings, for their elk lies they sport and play. Nay, mere well the bonny Callans marched he wharf and her hoodies scroll for doom. Oh, fuck. Norwegians, Petite and Quacken, mourn the ships sailed to the broomy law. Broken families and lands we've headed will curse Scotland, the brave nae bear nae mere. Black and white, yen till ever married, maps the vile barracks of the maesters wear.
So come all ye a king with freedom, never heed what the hoodies croak for doom. In your house, all the bins o' Adam will find breathe Ballybry and painted bloom. When Maclean meets with his queens in Springburn, all the roses and beans will turn to bloom, and the blackbird, the young Niagara, dings a fell gallows o'er the border. Super.
That's it.
That's it.